what is duress, and which clauses are recognized as unfair contract terms and therefore not legally valid. In this video, we'll discuss what makes a contract not enforceable as our last video in our 6-part series that aimed to answer the question of what makes a contract legally binding. Make sure to stay until the end of the video to find out when a contract needs to be in writing. But before we get started, let me just very quickly introduce myself. I'm Malcolm Zoppi, an English qualified solicitor and the managing director of Zoppi, my law firm. And on YouTube, my goal is to make business law easy. Amazing. So under which circumstances is a contract not enforceable? Well, we'll discuss 3 main things, starting with duress. Duress is when one party places such pressure on another party that other party feels like they have no option but to agree to that contract. So, for example, when the godfather makes you an offer that you cannot refuse, that contract is likely going to be recognized as legally invalid and therefore not enforceable because you had no option but to agree. Let's move on to the red hand rule. Now, the red hand rule states that if there are certain terms in a contract, especially when it comes to consumer contracts, that are so burdensome, so unfair and one-sided, those terms need to be highlighted by being written in red, and there should be a huge red hand pointing to that unfair term. This is a way to combat the fact that the majority of people simply sign a contract without actually reading and understanding that contract. And if there is a huge red hand pointing to a specific clause, then likely, or more likely, that person is actually going to read that specific clause. On the subject of unfair contract terms, let's talk about the Unfair Contract Terms Act. Under the Unfair Contract Terms Act, a clause is going to be recognized as legally invalid and therefore unenforceable if that clause causes such a significant imbalance in the rights and obligations of the parties to the detriment of the consumer. Put in simple words, that kind of means that if a clause is significantly unfair or unbalanced, then that clause is not legally valid. But before we move on to discussing when a contract needs to be in writing to be recognized as legally enforceable, make sure to subscribe to my channel to continue to receive to the point, pragmatic and practical legal information. Also, if you want professional legal advice from a qualified solicitor, make sure to reach out. I have my contact details below. Amazing. So when it comes to selling property or selling land, that contract needs to be in writing to be legally binding. And certain documents, such as the TR1 form that is submitted to the land registry, needs to be witnessed. If you haven't learned about the 5 main elements that make a contract legally binding, make sure to watch this video to start the series by learning about the legal offer.